Hello, I'm Esther Githu-Ewart. It's Tuesday, December 6th. This is Africa 54.
There's a peace deal between Addis Ababa and Tigray in place, but will it hold? Henry Wilkins reports on the possibilities of success. The ANC's National Executive Committee says it will vote against the report, accusing President Ramaphosa of misconduct, as David Doyle details. Abalone is a luxury dish in high demand, and South Africa's stock has been poached. Kate Bartlett reports on its revival through aquaculture. All this and much more on today's Africa 54.
We begin in Central Africa, where Congo's government says the death toll from a massacre last week blamed on the M23 rebels has increased to at least 270 people. The civilians were killed in an attack that broke a fragile ceasefire agreement. M23's chairman challenged the figure and accused Congo's government of creating a diversion from other atrocities in the region that he says have been committed by government soldiers and their allies. In Goma, members of social movements and residents of the city gathered in a vigil to remember the victims of the conflict. Carrying banners reading "Kishishe is not a butchery" and singing "Kishishe O," the group demanded attention of the international community to put an end to the conflict between the M23 rebel group, Rwanda and Congo.
We are here because our compatriots have been killed by the M23 terrorists, and the President of the Republic has decreed 3 days of national mourning. And we, as young Congolese, have said to ourselves, get together to share with our friends and mourn our own.
We say enough is enough. We are tired of it. We don't want war, because we are here for peace. The Congolese are looking for peace. We are looking for peace with the neighbors, but they don't want to give us peace. We are here to call on the international community and our president that the youth of the DRC say no to war. Enough is enough. We are not here for war, but we also want to join our armed forces to fight the enemy.
DRC government spokesman Patrick Muyaya says that the government is opening an official inquiry into what happened in Kishishe, a village located about 20 kilometers from Goma. Despite a November peace deal to end Ethiopia's 2-year civil war with Tigrayan forces, questions remain whether the deal will be honored. There is a desperate need for aid across much of Tigray, and civilians on both sides are crying out for justice after suffering possible war crimes. Henry Wilkins has more.
2020's Axum massacre saw Eritrean and Ethiopian troops carry out extrajudicial executions against civilians, indiscriminate shelling and widespread looting in the city in northern Tigray. Residents estimate hundreds were killed. Hiab Gebrusadik is a survivor.
The federal government is actually the perpetrator of the crime, and the criminals cannot investigate their own crime. Justice should come from free international organizations like the UN, the EU, the African Union.
Like many in Ethiopia, he wants justice for the suffering that he and his community endured during the country's 2-year conflict. A peace deal was signed in South Africa in early November, and an end to the war may be in sight, but grievances stemming from possible war crimes remain. In September, a UN Commission of Inquiry on Ethiopia said starvation of civilians in Tigray was used by the government as a method of warfare, and that Ethiopian and Eritrean forces used sexual slavery against Tigrayan women and girls. Tigrayan forces, the UN said, didn't use the tactics but were accused of war crimes, including rape in areas they occupied in the Amhara and Afar regions. This woman from Lalibela, who asked to remain anonymous out of fear, says she was 7 months pregnant when Tigrayan soldiers came to her house and raped her.
They took me to a deserted area and raped me. They held me with them from Monday to Saturday. There was no administration, no police, and everyone left. It is only those of us who were helpless and weak. And as I said, I was pregnant and my mother is blind.
Although both sides have committed atrocities, the group Human Rights Watch says it has documented a sustained campaign of ethnic cleansing against Tigrayans, much of which has taken place in darkness because media and human rights investigators could not gain access to the Tigray region. And since the peace deal, the amount of aid being allowed to enter Tigray
is not enough to meet the enormous needs there. And at the same time, the services, be it communications, electricity, banking, which are so critical to meeting the needs of the population as well, have not been restored by the federal government authorities. So we really are talking about a context in which abuses are ongoing.
Asked whether the deal is being implemented fast enough, one analyst told VOA,
"It's not entirely clear how much progress has been made in sort of deconflicting the front lines, this disengagement process. Again, this doesn't mean that the deal is about to collapse. It just demonstrates how hard this process is."
Even if a lasting peace is established, the road to accountability and reconciliation will be long. Tigrayan leaders have repeatedly said they wish to hold a referendum to leave the Ethiopian Federation. Henry Wilkins for VOA News.
It's time for Health Report, and joining us now is Africa 54 Health correspondent Lino Mudu. Hello, Lino.
Hello, Esther. It's good to be here. Well, cholera, measles, Ebola, and monkeypox, or Mpox, are a few of the outbreaks that Africa has been confronted with this year. Observers say the COVID-19 pandemic has revealed significant gaps in public health emergency preparedness and the resilience of health systems across Africa. Inadequate health services have prevented many people in Africa from exercising their right to health. They say more needs to be done to improve health systems on the continent, including access to vaccines, medicines, and technologies. Today, I am speaking with Dr. Ahmed Ogwel Ouma. He is the acting director of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and he will give us more insight. Welcome to Africa 54, Dr. Ouma.
Thank you for having me.
Experts are sounding the alarm on the reemergence of diseases that are vaccine preventable, like cholera and Ebola. Why are we seeing so many diseases that are coming back in the surface, especially when they are vaccine preventable?
There are two main reasons. There are many reasons, but two stand out. The first is the disruption in routine immunization across the continent has resulted in immunities of certain communities dropping, and therefore these vaccine preventable diseases then start to take root in those communities. The second reason is our health systems are under so much pressure that diseases that are relatively simple to manage and handle quickly start to show a bigger threat because they're allowed to circulate within the community for longer times. And these are both directly related to the COVID-19 pandemic, which has hit the whole world really hard. And here on the continent, we are seeing these two phenomena contributing to the increase in some of these diseases that could very well be managed much more easily.
And speaking of the COVID-19 pandemic, the pandemic has revealed some significant gaps in public health emergency preparedness, as well as the resilience of health systems across Africa. So the continent has often relied on the global community to tackle some health emergencies. How is the Africa CDC ensuring that African countries are prepared for health crises? And also, what will it take for African countries to be self-reliant when it comes to health crises and health emergencies?
This pandemic has actually exposed the weakness of the health systems globally, not just in Africa. And here on the continent, we are doing something about it. To make sure that we are able to handle future health outbreaks and disease threats even more efficiently, we need to do three main things. The first is we must have our institutions that deal with public health to be well established, well resourced, and efficiently run. When those institutions are in place and functioning well, it means that any small outbreak can be able to be controlled before it becomes a big outbreak. The second thing we must do, and we are doing, is to improve the capability and capacity of our health workers. We need to train the right health workforce in the right numbers, give them the right tools, and then deploy them where they are needed the most. When we have this in place, it means we'll be controlling outbreaks much faster. The third thing that we need to do as a continent is secure our own supply chain. We must manufacture, from simple things like masks to complex things like vaccines, here on the continent, so that when we need these tools, we can be able to access them quickly and respond even faster than we did. And these are some of the things that we are doing on the continent to address the weaknesses.
And we're running out of time, but an analysis by the WHO has showed that there has been a 63% increase in zoonotic diseases in Africa from 2012 to 2022 compared to the 10 years prior. Why are we seeing this increase in zoonotic diseases, and what can be done to lower the risk of such diseases?
Two main things why we are seeing an increase in zoonotic diseases. One is climate change. It is exposing parts of the environment that were before not exposed to the human population. And the second reason is our health systems are right now able to pick out more infections, more pathogens than we had been able to do in the past. What we need to do is improve the way in which we do surveillance within the animal, plant, and bird populations. That way we can be able to know in advance which bacteria, viruses, etc. are affecting those populations, and we prepare for them. Our health systems as well need to be stronger in picking out diseases within human beings early, so that we do not allow them to spread and become larger outbreaks.
Okay, Dr. Ouma, thank you so much. We have to leave it there. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time. Dr. Ahmed Ogwal Ouma is the acting director of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter at Lenore Moudou. Esther?
Thank you so much, Lenore. Be sure to join Lenore Moudou on Africa 54 every Tuesday for her health reports. South Africa's governing African National Congress National Executive Committee says the party will vote against adoption of a report that found initial evidence President Cyril Ramaphosa may have violated the Constitution. The National Assembly is debating the report on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Ramaphosa has filed court papers challenging the report. David Doyle has more.
Outside a meeting venue in Johannesburg, a crowd sang its support for Cyril Ramaphosa. But inside, the fate of the South African president was hanging in the balance. The executive committee of his ruling African National Congress met to discuss allegations he may have committed misconduct and violated his oath of office. That follows a report by a panel of experts into allegations that large sums of foreign currency were hidden at Ramaphosa's game farm, and that he failed to report the money missing when it was stolen in 2020. On Monday, Ramaphosa filed court papers challenging the report, while at the executive committee meeting, ANC Treasurer General Paul Mashatile announced the governing party's decision. He said the ANC would vote in Parliament against adoption of the panel report.
It is the view of the ANC that the decision that we take is in the best interest of the country. Let the president continue with his responsibilities until such time that all these processes requires that he can continue.
The scandal, dubbed Farmgate by the media, only came to light in June. It's raised questions over how Ramaphosa, who came to power promising to fight corruption, acquired the cash and whether he declared it. Ramaphosa has denied any wrongdoing and has not been charged with any crimes. On Monday, his lawyers filed papers at South Africa's Constitutional Court seeking for the panel report to be reviewed, declared unlawful and set aside.
It is up to the National Executive Committee.
Ramaphosa also wants any steps taken by the lower house of parliament, the National Assembly, over the report to be declared unlawful and invalid, the papers showed.
That was David Doyle of Reuters reporting. Cyril Ramaphosa is not South Africa's first president or leader of the ruling African National Congress Party to be dogged by allegations of corruption. While graft claims do not surprise most South Africans, analysts say it is taking a toll on the ANC's popularity. Zahir Kasim reports from Johannesburg.
Nelson Mandela's African National Congress may have brought freedom to South Africa, but that freedom has been marred by corruption allegations at the party's highest levels. On Monday, the ANC faces a crisis after a report by an independent panel found President Cyril Ramaphosa may have broken the law and violated his oath of office. The panel's report says large amounts of foreign currency was stolen at Ramaphosa's private game farm in 2020 and that he failed to report that the money was missing. Ramaphosa has denied wrongdoing and he has not been charged with any crimes. On the streets of Johannesburg, South Africans react to the party's latest crisis.
I'm always disappointed by the ANC. I don't have any faith in them. They don't do much for us. They do much for themselves and their families.
I mean, I was very hopeful when there was the original change, when the ANC came into power, and it's just been a systematic disappointment over the decades of ANC power and leadership.
It's high time that we really need a change. We need to see all the social responsibility being delivered to the people.
Despite the frustration of another scandal, experts say the ANC faces tough choices regarding Ramaphosa's future with the party.
All the surveys that I'm aware of indicates that if Mr. Ramaphosa leaves the ANC, the level of support drops by anything between 5 and 10%, maybe even a bit more, which leaves the party at somewhere between 35 and 45% national support. So that means they no longer have the majority to govern if we go to an election now.
Analysts say that the party has seen declining support with every election due to its failure to provide basic services like clean water and electricity to the public. Former President Jacob Zuma's tenure was clouded by corruption allegations as the nation's infrastructure declined. An inquiry into state graft also found that under Zuma's watch, state anti-corruption units had been dismantled and law enforcement weakened. Ramaphosa campaigned on fighting graft, and though it has been a long journey, one civil society watchdog, Corruption Watch, says Ramaphosa has made improvements.
Prior to President Ramaphosa's appointment, or prior to his election into office, civil society wasn't allowed a seat at the table. We were often shunned, distrusted. There was no real working relationship, whereas now I think there's quite a solidified relationship because the ANC government under Ramaphosa has taken an approach to say that fighting corruption is a whole of society initiative. It can't just be up to government or up to law enforcement. So they're involving everybody.
Ramaphosa says he will challenge the disciplinary report. Political analysts say he is a strong contender to remain the party's president at the upcoming ANC conference due to begin December 16th. Zahir Kasim for VOA News, Johannesburg.
Sudan's coup leaders and the main pro-democracy group have signed a deal to establish a civilian-led transitional government following the military takeover last year. But implementation of the deal is still in doubt. The framework was signed Monday by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhani, General Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, and the leaders of the Forces for the Declaration of Freedom and Change. But key players refused to participate and no deadline was set for the transition to begin. It appears to offer only the broadest outlines for how the country will resume its progression to democracy. That process was appended in October 2021 when Burhan unseated the civilian half of Sudan's ruling Sovereignty Council with Dagalo's backing. Still to come, a World Cup update live from Doha, and a luxury food decimates the Abalone population in South Africa. Stay with us. In other African news, Libya's state energy firm is urging its foreign oil and gas partners to resume exploration and production while assuring them security had begun to improve dramatically after clashes earlier this year. Nigeria's ruling party presidential candidate Bola Tinubu says Nigeria's February election will be a significant step in consolidating democratic gains at a time when some other governments in the region have been ousted by military coups. The African Union says Somali forces and allied militias have pushed Al-Shabaab fighters out of Adan Yabal, a town in the Middle Shabelle region. The Islamist group has controlled the town for 6 years. Turning to sports, let's go live now to Qatar, where VOA Sports reporter Sunday Shomari is standing by for us tonight. Good evening, Sunday. Tell us who is playing who tonight.
Good evening, Esther. Now the one and only hope for Africa, Morocco, the Lions of Atlas. Now they're facing giants of soccer in Europe, Spain. And now we are talking about seconds, Esther, for this game to end. It's already 90 minutes gone. They're in the extra time. And hopefully we'll see another extra time tonight as Spain is going very strong against Morocco. Some people say Morocco is under siege, but some people in Kenya will say under sea again. But anyway,
oh boy.
The game is over right now as we speak. It is 0-0. So right now we're going to see another extra time, as we saw yesterday on that game of Croatia last night with Japan. So now another 30 minutes. What's going to happen, we don't know. But all I can say, Esther, right here is tense. People are sitting on eggshells. The whole continent of Africa is looking for Morocco to do something tonight. Right, so let's see what's going to happen.
Sunday, you're so funny. Not siege, it's siege. Anyway, as we await the update on that game, tell us what happened last night and what fans are saying in Doha.
Absolutely, Esther. Fans in Doha are ecstatic for what Brazil did last night. It was such a great game. Fans of Brazil were so happy last night because they made it to the quarterfinals again. And this is the moment that they were really waiting for to see happening. And in this area where I saw people coming out of the game, they are very excited. They say this is one-way ticket to the final. But is that going to happen? Let's see what these fans say, Esther.
Just came back from the game. Amazing match from Brazil. All the players played superbly. Neymar coming back, I feared that he wouldn't play great, but he was just amazing. He was the man of the match. Richarlison scoring goals, midfielders playing amazingly. Alisson back, speechless.
The game is amazing tonight. So I think Brazil is one of the stronger teams. We obviously destroyed South Korea. So I think we're going to win the World Cup once we move on.
Very happy today. Very happy. All the way to the World Cup. Neymar is back. No more injury. The leg is perfect. Wrapped up. Ready for World Cup glory.
Okay, I see in the background people saying about Messi. What do you think they mean?
It's the little win they can have today before they lose against Brazil.
Sunday, very happy people, right?
Yeah.
All right, Sunday. I'll let you go watch the game and we'll catch up tomorrow. Thank you so much. VOA Sports reporter Sunday Shomari, live for us from Qatar. Abalone has been a luxury food in China since imperial times. Poachers are feeding the country's appetite for the pricey little mollusk, resulting in a drop in the abalone population in South Africa's once large natural reserves. Reporter Kate Bartlett visited one abalone aquaculture farm in Hermanus, South Africa, and has more.
Hermanus, a small tourist town outside of Cape Town, is known for its stunning ocean vistas and humpback whales. There also used to be an abundant number of a much smaller sea creature in the wild here, the abalone. But now their numbers are greatly depleted, so farms like this one are breeding the seafood for export, as well as putting some baby abalone back in the ocean.
But it's very difficult because I grow the babies. I can't eat my babies, it's quite difficult.
Breeder Cabello Manyama may not eat them, but the farm she works at produces these sea snails, primarily for the Asian market, where the seafood is highly prized in Chinese cuisine. The majority of the company's exports go to China, including Hong Kong, where a larger abalone can sell for about $70. Abalone suits the Chinese culturally, says Chief Financial Officer Enver Manchest.
In the Asian market, abalone is known as white gold. And if you look at a dried piece of abalone, it represents or resembles a gold ingot. In a similar way, it represents a sign of prosperity.
The lucrative business has gained the attention of poachers who want to cash in on Asian demand. Once abundant along South Africa's coastline, abalone numbers in the wild have dropped because of rampant poaching. There are even concerns it could become extinct in the wild. Fishing for abalone is now forbidden, but the poaching continues, says researcher Kimon de Krief.
The black market prices for abalone eclipsed record highs just last year. That's another signal from the price side that demand is incredibly high and that the market is growing.
De Krief says the multi-million-dollar illicit abalone trade is run by organized criminal syndicates in South Africa.
In many cases, these groups are involved in other forms of crime, whether it's people smuggling or human trafficking, or there's some convergence with other illicit wildlife trades. There have been seizures, for example, of dried abalone alongside rhino horn or ivory.
Another consequence of poaching. 30 years ago, local residents were allowed to dive for abalone and eat it, but now that's not allowed, says restaurant owner Yanni Malherbe.
South Africans haven't been able to get a hold of it. Most of it gets shipped to China, or all of it gets shipped to China.
Malherbe is now trying to repopularize the food by putting abalone, sourced from the area's local farms, back on South African plates. Kate Bartlett for VOA News, Hermanus.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.